Hey everyone, what's up? This is Simon back with a new tutorial, and today actually with a component review. So maybe we can make this a new format on this channel where we inspect a component, a package, a library, whatever, and I just dive into it and you recommend things. So that would be maybe a cool idea for the future. Let me know what you think about it. But what we're gonna do today is we inspect the new Ionic picker component, which is actually pretty awesome. The documentation isn't that great so far, or at the time I create this video, maybe it's better later. So let's dive into this and let's see how to use it. The only thing I've done before is I created a blank new project, and as you can see today I'm again using the dark editor. I'm really not sure about which one I prefer. Currently I really like the design of the dark editor. I don't know. I really don't know what's better in a video, so maybe you can tell me as well. But what we're gonna do first of all is let's change our view a bit and let's add a little button so we can trigger the Ionic picker component. You can take a look at the documentation as well. So at the time of recording this, it looks like this. So we can open a single picker component and we can also open a multi-picker component. But in terms of how this works, this document is actually pretty short. So there's no information on how to create this. Maybe it's in the picker control and I just missed it. No, it is really, I don't know, a bit less. Normally they have great documentation, so I guess they're working on this. So what we're going to do is we will implement one simple picker and one advanced picker. For the simple picker, I will just select a single value that we can then display with a little ion label, and let's make the color primary so we see what we selected. And we will fill a variable that we call framework. But the picker component, and that's also again something people might have problems with, is nothing that you add in here, or maybe that could work. Let me check. But again, it's hard to tell because we have no documentation on this, so I'm not sure if this could work. I think it actually could work this way, maybe, but what we're gonna do is we will call it with a picker controller from our code, and that works pretty great so far. So let's make the button to the end. Let's, of course, very important, make this visual appealing. And then do I actually use the right setting for the zoom? Yeah. So this is the 400 zoom setting. Because I'm on an iMac and therefore I have to zoom in the code, because otherwise it would be very, very small on most other screens. So with our button, we want to select and show the basic picker component. As you can see, I'm only working in the automatically generated home folder. So home page, TS and HTML. And we're gonna have to add a new constructor in here so we can actually import the, what do we need? The picker controller, or as I like to call it, like this, the picker controller, and we see the auto import is coming from add Ionic Angular, which is the right way of doing things. So what we can do before presenting the picker now is to create some options that we pass into the picker, and I would recommend you define the type picker options right here, because that will give you a bit of code completion. And if you go to a task like this, you see this, you don't really get any information about how to use this picker controller or whatsoever. You have no idea about the options. The best thing really is to dive into what you can do. So if you take a look at the picker options, you see that we have to define an array of buttons and we have to define an array of columns, so you can guess what those things will do. And we got a CSS class and some more variables that are, of course, all of them documented on the page, but not really how to use and fill them. Also, you might not know how to fill a picker column, so simply take a look at here. That's how a picker column looks like, or how the picker column option and the picker button looks like. So all the information is defined in the interfaces, and that's a great way to look up how to use components that you have not used previously. And because that is a great way to take some nice coffee. So now we know that we need buttons, and you see I also get the code completion, which is pretty nice. We got the columns that we somehow need to define, and then we can use our very own picker controller and call create with the options that we still have to define. And this will, as you can see, be a promise just like the modal view or all the other things. So let's use it like this with await, and then we mark the function as async. So in this case, we can use picker.present immediately on the next line. If you're not familiar with this, it's basically the same like doing then and here having the picker for the callback and then calling picker present. So in that case, you see the async flow a bit better, but you got 3 lines. If you do it with await, this line will basically wait until this returns the result, and then we can use it like a regular variable at this point. Okay, what we also might want to do, and what's important most of the time, I wanted to say, is to catch the value of the picker. And here you can use the on-did dismiss of the picker. And again, let's just use the block in here, and this will return some data. And actually in this data, we have to grab the information of the selected column. So we can get the picker dot get column. Okay, yes, returns the column that matches the specified name. So in here we will have to specify a key, and then we will get the column. So let's define the columns for the picker, and I'll just bring this part in. So the first one will just have one column with the name framework and a few options with their text and the value. And now we can tell the picker to give us the framework column once we are done. So let's log the column out so we see what we got in there. And then, no, why do I get code completion sometimes? I really don't know. Okay, let's define framework as empty in the beginning, and then we set framework to, and now you will see column, or the result of get column, is actually also a promise. So in here we can do the same like before. We can await the result and then use column, I think it is in options, column selected index, and then dot text. So it is buried a bit deep down, and because we use await, we have to mark this one as async as well. Yes, there we go. So let's see how this works. But actually we should define the buttons, but that's not so interesting. Just to cancel and done button or whatever you want, maybe a reset button as well. But maybe we should also, no, not this, but call Ionic serve in the background as well. So you see it's a bit problematic in here because the result of get column is basically a picker column. And again, now you could go back to the picker options and take a look. Picker column, okay. A picker column has a name, and at some point the options, which are basically the values, you can skip through. So we need to get the options, and then we need to get the selected picker column from the array, and then from that option we can get either the text or the value. That's of course up to us, whatever we want in that place. So let's see. So it doesn't really look very special so far, but once we hit select, we see the little picker coming up, and now let's select view, and then we see the log for the column, which is name framework. We got the 3 options, and then we got the previously selected index and selected index. So if I now go to React, we should see that the selected index changes to 2, previously 2. That's Well, that's not really true, but anyway, the selected index is true. And with the selected index, we can now grab option at position 2 and get either text or value or whatever we want from that object. Great. I rate this component very good so far. Documentation, not so good. But let's continue with, let's call the next function, or let's just do it above maybe. Let's call this show advanced picker. And this time we want to have 2 columns because I think you can have this view with other plugins or with the select, or I don't know which one it was as well, but having multiple columns is really powerful of the picker component. So therefore, let's create a new Ion fun in here, and let me just bring this in. So let's make a picker with 3 columns, and in the 3 columns we want to have a game, a category, and a rating. This is really, help me, I have no idea about how to make realistic examples at this point. The only thing I know is that we want to show the advanced picker and then present all the options that we store in a little array in our view. So I really couldn't find any better example for this. Maybe you could let me know, but I won't change the video anyway. But still, maybe you can leave a great comment below on a good use case. Of course, like the date component with day, month, and year is a good way, but they already got the Ion date time, so there are use cases, and I know from the past, from the business point of view, that there are cases when you need a picker that can select a combination of different things that should belong together or should trigger something. Okay, enough of the talk. We basically need the same thing again. So let's copy this over. But now let's add a few changes. So first of all, let's add a CSS class, because this wasn't clear to me on how to use it in the beginning. This took me some time to figure out. So let's just add an Academy Picker CSS class just to see how and what we can add this class later on. And let's maybe also add it to the button, because the button can have a CSS class as well. So let's call this special done, and we will look in the DOM object later to see where those classes are added. In terms of columns, I just, as I said, it's not the best example. I just took some data, let's say a game with options, a category with options, and a rating with options. So just pick whatever you want, make it a few columns in here so that we see how to use the picker. And then we go ahead, create it, we present it, and on dismiss, of course, now we need to get the 3 different columns, which are game, category, and rating. And then finally, we can set our own selected based on the values we get from here. So it is really just the same like before. I actually have never used the value. Maybe I should use value just to show the difference. Alrighty, right. Nope, like this. So let's see. While this is compiling. Great. Game category rating, no value. And now we got 3 columns with the games. We can actually also cancel. Okay. That shouldn't happen, maybe. I'm not completely sure, but good that it happens right now, because I can already see the questions coming in. So when I press cancel, data is always undefined, either with done or with cancel. So that's not a great way to find out if you cancel the dialog or it was just close. Let's look into the picker, create, dismiss, get top, backdrop, dismiss, button, columns, duration, enter, leave animation, mode, show backdrop. Actually, we should be able to use these. but normally this should also work. I don't know, maybe I will leave a comment below this for the events as well. I think I tried to use them, but this didn't really work for me, the events. So maybe you find a way to use them, but otherwise still let's finish this by seeing. So let's use number 1 in all categories, which is World of Warcraft, MMORPG. And the rating is not 2, I think. Okay, I started at 1. Very clever, Simon. Tricked myself into thinking it was wrong while it was right. Really, I need to up my game on the examples a bit. I'm sorry for that. But we see that we now got 3 columns. We got the buttons. We can access every data from the picker. And okay, the last thing we wanted to see is how to debug the class. So the problem is what you might think is that you define the CSS class in here. So you got to define the Academy Picker CSS class in the homepage as CSS. But that's not going to work. Also not going to work for a modal. The problem is that the Ion Picker, as you can see it, is basically at the top level of your application. So here's the router with your page. Here's the app home. And in here you could have the styling. But the picker is not on that level. It is above everything. So therefore, you're gonna have to define the CSS at a place where this top level can access or find the actual CSS class. And one way to do this would be at the global as CSS. And now if you see, or if you inspect this, here we can see the Academy Picker is used for the Ion Picker. And then we also added the special class to this button. There it is, special done right on the button. So I've defined a few lines of CSS just to change the font weight and the color of the button. And then for the Academy Picker, actually this can be removed. And let's just use the rest. It looks terrible. So in terms of styling, I also need some more time, but as you can see, now we're able to define the styling for the picker, and you can truly make the Ion Picker component experience your very own. And that's it for this week for the component review. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you like the format of reviewing a component or a library or a package, leave a comment below. I actually like to dive into new components or packages, so that would be a great way to build up a little series. And as always, make sure to like the video, hit the subscribe with the bell icon, Tuesday's code, Thursday's vlog. I will catch you in one of those videos, so have a great day and take care.